High in the Indian Himalayas, sitting at an elevation of roughly 16,000 feet, is a glacial body of water known as Roopkund Lake. For most of the year, it is completely frozen over. But when the summer sun finally melts the ice, the receding snow reveals thousands of human bones scattered across the rocky shores. In 1942, a forest ranger on patrol stumbled upon this massive collection of remains. Because the world was in the middle of a global war, British authorities immediately panicked, assuming the dead were a covert military force trying to slip through the mountains. Investigators arrived to find the remains of at least 600 to 800 distinct individuals spread around the lake. Yet the site lacked any typical battlefield evidence. Among the hundreds of bodies, there was no weapon, uniform, or sign of combat. No one had been shot or stabbed. Hundreds of unarmed people had gathered in unlivable, frozen crater deep in the mountains, only to die in numbers that defy conventional logic. The locals in the surrounding villages already had an explanation. Every 12 years, thousands of people undertake the Nanda Devi Rajjat Yatra, a grueling, high-altitude Hindu pilgrimage that traces a punishing route right past Roopkund Lake. According to a local 9th-century legend, a ruler named King Jastaval attempted this sacred journey with his queen, his soldiers, and a troupe of dancers. Instead of showing reverence, the royal party was loud and festive, which deeply insulted Nanda Devi, the goddess of the mountain. To punish their arrogance, the lore says the goddess summoned a horrific storm, raining massive, lethal iron balls down from the sky until the entire royal procession was wiped out. Oral traditions and folklore often serve as a way for communities to document and make sense of real environmental disasters. But confirming whether a legendary storm actually killed hundreds of people required hard physical evidence. That evidence arrived in 2019, when researchers from Harvard University conducted a comprehensive genetic and carbon dating analysis on the bones. Their findings immediately dismantled the idea that everyone at the lake died in a single localized massacre. This timeline charts the carbon dating results for the victims, and it shows a massive gap between the deaths. While a large group of the individuals died around the 9th century, another distinct group died a full 1,000 years later, in the 19th century. The DNA results were even stranger. While the older group was of South Asian descent, the 19th century group had genetic markers pointing all the way to the Eastern Mediterranean, specifically the Greek island of Crete. The presence of Greek travelers from the 1800s in the exact same remote Himalayan crater as a local population from a millennium earlier meant Roopkund was a recurring geographic death trap. When forensic anthropologists examined the remains across both timelines, they found one consistent factor linking all the victims together. Almost every skeleton exhibited severe, unhealed blunt force trauma, and the fractures were isolated entirely to the tops of their skulls and their shoulder bones. An avalanche or a rock slide crushes a body from multiple angles, snapping limbs and ribs. These victims were struck exclusively from directly above, ruling out typical mountain hazards. The Himalayas are famous for intense, spontaneous hailstorms that form rapidly over the peaks. The rapid updrafts in this region are capable of suspending ice long enough to create abnormally massive hailstones. The legendary iron balls described in the local folklore directly mirror documented weather anomalies in the region. In 1986, a hailstorm in nearby Bangladesh produced individual stones weighing over a kilogram each, killing nearly 100 people. The forensic evidence and the 9th century myth align perfectly. Over the span of 1,000 years, separate groups of travelers walked into an exposed, rocky bottleneck with absolutely no tree cover or shelter, right as lethal hailstorms rain down on them. Roopkund Lake functions as a topographic bottleneck along a centuries-old route, where the lack of natural cover leaves travelers entirely exposed to sudden, localized weather shifts. Centuries of travelers, from 9th century pilgrims to 19th century explorers, have navigated these Himalayan heights to reach sacred sites or uncover the lake's secrets, often operating far from any reliable shelter. But human biology is fragile. Even a thick skull is defenseless against the kinetic energy of a solid block of ice falling from thousands of feet in the air. When the temperature drops and the sky turns dark over the lake, your century of origin, your wealth, and your physical endurance mean nothing. The only variable that decides who lives and who dies is the presence of a rock overhang. Skeleton Lake remains a physical record of nature's indifference, documenting the moments when human paths collided with the